الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. We are still looking at Habermas' critique of Klein's conception of rationality. Klein postulates, however, we had briefly considered this point, but just want to look at it again. Klein postulates, however, a third aspect, namely a logic of argumentation that investigates logic of argumentation. So within argumentation you have participants, and you have some problem, and you gather to, so there are problematic claims, and you want to, for example, resolve it, but resolve it based on good reasons or good arguments, and not anything else, not any external influences, status or social dominance. Those are external influences. So logic of argumentation is when you follow the lead of the reasons within an argumentation. Okay, that's the logic of argumentation. And logic of argumentation has become important because Klein postulates, however, a third aspect, namely a logic of argumentation that investigates validity connection as law-like empirical regularities without having recourse to concepts of objective validity. So the problem starts when we have abandoned the concept of or traditional concept of objective validity. And the traditional concept of objective validity was roughly, the traditional concept of objective validity is based on the idea that truth and things like truth are objective realities which we can access to if we use correct method. In a similar fashion as, for example, I can see a tree if I use my senses correctly. So truth and validity are objects, albeit rational objects, but those rational objects are out there somewhere and we have access to them. On the other hand, once we reject this idea of objective validity, not truth as such, but the idea that truth is out there like trees and other objects, and it can be understood or have access to from without, that has been abandoned, but without abandoning the concept of truth altogether. So now we have a concept that, in order to have any access to truth or validity, what we need is a subjective perspective. but subjective, or rather intersubjective perspective. And it is only within intersubjective perspective that the space of reasons is opened to us. And it is only from within intersubjective perspective that we can have access to any notion of objective validity. So that's the whole context in which Habermas is trying to critically assess Klein. And in a sense, both Habermas and Klein seems, or at least from Habermas's reading, it seems that Klein also shares his general adherence to this new conception of validity, intersubjective conception of validity. Okay, Klein postulates our third aspect, namely a logic of argumentation that investigates validity connections as law-like empirical regularities without having recourse to concept of objective validity, without having recourse to the concept of traditional objective validity. It is supposed to depict what he's referring to. It is meaning, probably by it he means these law-like, empirical law-like connections. It is supposed to depict the laws to which participants in argumentations are subject to. Like these are laws of rationality in a sense. So let me sort of try to understand this. So we have causal laws here, and causal laws, these are laws of nature. And causal laws are based on the concept of cause and effect on the one hand, but on the other hand, the main element in that is regularities. So we see things happening, for example, two events happening, one as a cause and one effect, again and again in different conditions, in different contexts, and from which we can sort of glean general laws. So empirical causal laws are based on the notion of cause and effect and the notion of regularities within nature. Similarly, if we are going to have rational laws, those rational laws will be based on different type of causality of reason, obviously, cause and effect, but still, and also regularity. And that's what supposedly Klein, according to Habermas, is trying to do. Klein is trying to discover empirical laws, but those empirical laws are rational laws, and he does this through observing the activity of giving and giving reasons and raising claims and defending claims and giving counter reasons within an argumentation. So what he observed is this activity of giving, raising and defending, and raising claims and defending those claims and counterclaims and giving reasons for them and defending those reasons against counter reason. This activity is of the participants within an argumentation. If you observe them like you observe the nature as an external observer, you might be able to discover certain rational law or law of rationalities, which according to Habermas, Klein thinks that would replace the old conception of objective validity and would provide the foundation for a new intersubjective conception of intersubjective objective validity, so to speak. And Habermas is going to raise objection against this attempt to base rules of rationality, which determine the validity of claims on law-like regularities, even if those regularities are rational and not natural regularities. That's what I understand from it so far. Okay, so let's go back and read it once more. Klein postulates, however, a third aspect, namely a logic of argumentation that investigates validity connections as law-like empirical regularities without having recourse to the concept of objective validity, that is traditional concept of objective validity. It is supposed to depict probably by it he means Klein's postulation as such, the laws to which participants in argumentation are subject, in some cases against their inclinations and in opposition to external influences, because external influences are going to minimize the validity influence. Such a theory, that is of Klein, such a theory has to analyze what appear to participants as internal connection between validity adherences as external connection between, so that's the external observer between events linked nomenologically. So what Habermas is saying is, let's go back to what Habermas is saying is that this project of trying to discover laws of rationality is doomed to failure because you are trying to observe from external viewpoint something which opens up only if you are a participant. So when you are within argumentation as a participant, you see something as a claim and validity claim, reason and counter reason. But if you see those reasons from outside as an external observer, those are no longer reasons for you. They are just events like any other causal events. So by this, you actually transform reason into causality, and you annul the basic distinction between cause and reason, which Habermas assumed, in the sense that cause doesn't have any normative power that reason has. Okay, so that's Habermas's objection or critique of this attempt to discover laws of rationality. Obviously, this critique depends on many things, but one of the things is that you recognize the basic distinction between reason and causes. There are philosophers who don't, so but then that would be a totally different. For those philosophers, probably the idea of even the crisis of the traditional concept of what validity doesn't exist either. But I'm not sure about that. I think we should stop here, and we'll start from here next time, and hopefully probably we'll need 2 more sessions, or 1, 2 or 3, or one more session, depending on how much dense the rest is, to finish this off. Okay.